The Rangers had barely escaped the warped plateau, their bodies aching and minds spinning from the unnatural shift in reality. With the barbarian camp behind them, they gathered what they could, torn icons and a handful of burning sigils, and then fled into the frozen ruins. But as they pressed forward, the chill in the air was more than the cold. It was the weight of unseen eyes tracking their every step. Just when Jarkon moved to urge his companions forward, a strange shimmer appeared ahead, like the edge of a veil between worlds. The landscape twisted once more, no time to question it. The barbarians, relentless in their pursuit, were upon them again. The group's steps echoed eerily as they moved through the fractured remnants of what was once a barbarian settlement. Chuma and Yankovic, seasoned and alert, took the lead, scanning the ruins for danger. The faint shimmer of the veil that had appeared ahead felt more tangible with each passing second, bending the very fabric of reality. As the Rangers moved forward, something shifted in the air. The faint, low growls reached their ears, and before they could react, the hulking figures of two Foulhorns emerged from the shadows. Vicious and grotesque, their forearms writhed, two ending in bladed appendages glinting in the weak light of the broken sky. Chuma raised his hand, signaling the group to stop. "We are not alone," he growled. Genevielle's eyes scanned the twisted landscape, her voice soft. "What manner of beasts are these?" "Foulhorns," Yankovic spat, his bowstring drawn taut. "Nasty things, too clever for their own good." One Foulhorn lunged towards Chuma, moving fast, its monstrous bulk sending debris scattering. Chuma stepped back, narrowly dodging its bladed arms. The Foulhorn was too close to shoot, but Chuma knew he'd have to act quickly. "Steady," Yankovic muttered, his eyes narrowing. He released his bowstring, and the arrow flew straight and true, finding its mark between the segmented plates of the creature's carapace. The Foulhorn let out a sharp screech, staggering back but not yet defeated. From the shadows, the barbarian berserkers re-emerged, their guttural roars signaling their intent to join the fray. Bloodlust burned in their eyes, their bodies scarred from countless battles. "Barbarians too," Wolfgang said darkly, gripping his sword. "They never know when to quit." Reality shifted once more, the air around them warping as the veil shimmered violently. A sharp crack split the ground beneath Chuma's feet, and before anyone could react, he was pulled back, tumbling away from the group. The force of the distortion flung him a few meters away, separated from his companions, but not lost entirely. "Chuma!" Jennifer called out, panic rising in her voice. "I'm fine," Chuma's voice echoed back, strained but still determined. "Stay focused." Modi locked eyes with one of the Foulhorns. The two beasts circled each other, each looking for an opening. Modi growled low, the sound reverberating through his massive frame as the Foulhorn raised its bladed arms. But neither was able to gain an advantage. Their combat was a brutal dance, each waiting for the other to make a fatal mistake. Yankovic, eyes sharp and unwavering, nocked another arrow. This time, his target was a wounded Foulhorn. He drew back and released, the arrow cutting through the air and embedding itself deep into the creature's flesh. Seeing their moment, Jarkon and Genevieve leapt into action. With Yankovic's arrow already weakening the creature, the two rangers moved as one. Genevieve thrust her spear into the Foulhorn's side, using her speed and agility to pierce its hide. Jarkon followed her strike, raising his massive sword. With a swift, powerful blow, he cleaved the creature in two, its twisted form collapsing to the ground in a heap. "Another one down," Jarkon said, his voice cold and steady as he wiped his blade clean. Genevieve caught her breath, nodding as she surveyed the battlefield. "But there are more." Reality groaned once more, the cracks widening around them. They could feel the weight of unseen forces pressing down, pulling them deeper into the chaos. And the worst was yet to come. The battle raged on as Modi and the Foulhorn he had been grappling continued their brutal struggle. The bear's massive claws tore through the creature's carapace, ripping chunks of flesh with each savage swipe. Blood flowed freely from the Foulhorn, but it remained standing, staggering on its bladed limbs. Jarkon wiped the sweat from his brow, surveying the battlefield, noticing the bear's brutal combat. Modi's weakening it, but it's still too damn stubborn to die. Before he could react, more barbarians surged into view from the frozen ruins, their savage cries joining the chaos. Behind them, another Foulhorn lumbered forward, its eyes glinting with cruel intelligence. The sheer numbers were overwhelming. "More of them," Jeneville muttered, clutching her spear tightly. "How many are there?" Chuma, back on his feet after being thrown by the reality shift, took aim. His arrow flew through the air, striking Modi's opponent in the side, piercing deep into its flesh. The Foulhorn screeched, reeling from the blow. Wolfgang, his blade shining in the dim, distorted light, stepped forward. "I'll finish it," he growled. With a powerful overhead swing, his sword cleaved through the Foulhorn's skull, splitting it in two. The creature collapsed in a heap, twitching before lying still. As the Rangers regrouped, reality warped again. The ground beneath Jarkon's feet shifted, becoming thick and sticky like mud. His movement slowed as if the earth itself was fighting against him. "The ground!" Jarkon cursed, his boots sinking into the mire. "I'm stuck!" Yankovic and Chuma, ever the watchful marksmen, unleashed a flurry of arrows to cover the group. Yankovic's keen eye landed on one of the charging barbarians. His arrow struck true, sinking deep into the warrior's chest. The barbarian staggered but kept coming, the primal rage driving him forward. "We need to move. That veil's opening wider," Yankovic shouted, his voice urgent. Through sheer will, Jarkon tore himself free from the mud-like ground, charging at the new Foulhorn bearing down on Modi. Wolfgang wasn't far behind, and together with the bear, the three of them clashed with the beast. Modi sank his teeth into one of the creature's limbs, while Jarkon swung his sword, carving a deep gash across its chest. Wolfgang's blade flashed, cutting down its other side. The Foulhorn collapsed under the combined assault, crushed beneath the fury of the Rangers. Yet another Foulhorn emerged from the shifting shadows, leaping into view. Its bladed arms whirled in anticipation of its next kill. Wolfgang gritted his teeth. Another one. "I'll cover you," Yankovic called out, already drawing his next arrow. Modi and Wolfgang surged toward the new threat, their movements precise and deadly, while Yankovic's arrows rained down from behind. The Rangers' shafts found their marks, wounding the approaching enemies and giving Wolfgang and Modi an opening to strike. Suddenly, the veil shimmered violently. The cracks in reality widened. The faint light of Frostgrave, now visible through the tear. The real world was just ahead, but the way was fraught with danger. "We're almost there," Jeneville called out, her voice full of hope, even as more enemies closed in around them. But reaching the real world was not a guarantee. The veil's widening edges seemed to pulse, a barrier between reality and something entirely else. And it was closing fast. Yankovic stood tall amidst the chaos, his sharp eyes locking onto the Foulhorn ahead. With a deep breath, he steadied his aim, loosing an arrow aimed for the creature's vulnerable spots. The arrow flew true, but the Foulhorn barely flinched, the projectile glancing off its hardened carapace. "Tough bastard," Yankovic muttered under his breath, already reaching for another arrow. Across the field, Modi, fueled by the bloodlust of battle, charged another Foulhorn head-on. His massive bulk crashed into the creature, his claws ripping into its flesh with a savage fury. With a single devastating blow, Modi brought the beast down, its lifeless form collapsing at his feet. Wolfgang moved swiftly to join the bear, his sword slicing cleanly through the leg of another Foulhorn. The creature howled in agony, falling to its knees, its balance destroyed by the precision of Wolfgang's strike. "They keep coming," Wolfgang shouted, eyes scanning the battlefield as barbarian war horns echoed through the ruins. More barbarians poured in, their silhouettes blending with the crumbling architecture around them. Their horns reverberated through the fractured landscape, a signal of their relentless pursuit. Yet, amidst them was another Foulhorn, its deadly form charging towards the rangers. Chuma, ever watchful, raised his bow and fired a volley of arrows at the new threat. His shots landed true, slowing the creature's advance, though the Foulhorn was far from finished. Jarkon, now free of the Foulhorn he had been battling, felt the ground shifting beneath him again. His boots, enchanted with the strange magic he had found in the ruins during their first adventure, began to shimmer. The slippery soles allowed him to slide across the battleground with unnatural ease, gliding out of the melee. Seizing the opportunity, Jarkon broke free from the fray and skidded directly into the path of a berserker charging towards his companions. His sword gleamed as he raised it, preparing to meet the enemy head-on. "Not today," Jarkon muttered, planting his feet as the berserker closed in. Yankovic narrowed his eyes, locking onto the Foulhorn. With a swift movement, he pulled his bowstring taut and aimed for a vulnerable spot. The arrow shot out, finding its mark in the Foulhorn's groin. The creature let out a sharp, guttural cry and turned to flee, its monstrous figure disappearing into the ruins, limping from the blow. Chuma, standing beside him, quickly fired an arrow at an approaching barbarian. The arrow whistled through the air but missed, thudding into the nearby ruin. "Damn!" Chuma hissed, already knocking another arrow. Nearby, Jarkon spotted another barbarian closing in. With a fluid motion, he threw his knife, aiming for the attacker's chest. But the barbarian knocked the blade away with his axe, a wild grin spreading across his face as he charged forward. At the same time, Wolfgang made his move. He leapt onto an old, weathered rowboat that had been abandoned in the ruins, raising his sword high. Muttering a prayer under his breath, the blade ignited with elemental power, glowing with a fiery brilliance. In a single precise motion, Wolfgang brought the sword down, beheading the barbarian with a clean strike, his head rolling away as the body collapsed. "Still got it," Wolfgang murmured, watching the flames flicker out from his blade. Across the battlefield, Modi struggled as the ground beneath him warped again. His massive paws sank into the earth like quicksand, slowing the great bear's movements. But his strength kept him from being completely pulled under. As the rangers fought, a loud boom echoed across the landscape, a sound so deafening that it stopped the barbarians in their tracks. The sudden noise caused a panic, and one by one the barbarians began to flee. Reality itself seemed to shift again, the cracks and distortions slowly mending as the veil lifted. Emerging from the swirling snowstorm ahead were three familiar figures: Bartholomew the Wizard, his goblin scribe Mudbud, and Sir Scales, the towering red dragonborn knight. They strode through the storm, finally rejoining their companions just as the battle came to an end. "Looks like we made it just in time," Bartholomew called out, his staff glowing faintly in the fading distortion. Mudbud gave a mischievous grin, scribbling notes furiously, while Sir Scales surveyed the aftermath with a calm, watchful gaze. The rangers, exhausted and battered, gathered together once more, ready to face whatever came next.